Now, let's come to lesson number 8, which is about Sangam age. Okay, so as we have studied till now about the empires in the northern India mostly. Okay, we didn't venture much into the south, but we covered Satavahan dynasty, which was you can say a little bit to the southern side, but not to the extreme south. Like this peninsular region, the coastal region, we have still not gone to. So now we will discuss about the most important chapter as far as art and culture is concerned, and as far as your ancient India is concerned. Why? Because UPSC prelims has started asking questions from this particular chapters like Sangam age, Chalukya, Vijayanagara Empire, southern Indian kingdoms very prominently. Okay, and this you will realize that even if you see the past year's papers, you will realize that these chapters have become somewhat UPSC's favorite. So you also need to pay little bit more attention to it than what is just present in NCERT. And hence we are covering this Tamil Nadu book so that you do not leave any stone unturned for your preparation. Okay, so let's start with the Sangam age. So Sangam age is basically an important chapter, as I told you, and specifically in the history of South India. Okay, according to the Tamil legends, there existed 3 Sangams. Mind my word, what are existing? 3 Sangams. And what is a Sangam basically? See, Sangam means assembly. Okay. So Sangam in the sense means, see what is the Sangam we say, na? 3 rivers are basically joining, they're creating a Sangam. That means there is something, you can say a ceremony sort of thing happening, or basically a lot of people have come together. So that is what I'm saying. Sangam is basically an assembly or an academy of Tamil poets. And there were how many Sangams? 3 Sangams that happened in the Tamil Nadu, which is in ancient Tamil Nadu popularly called as Muchangam. Okay, these Sangams, they flourish under the royal patronage of Pandyas. So Sangam age had 3 kingdoms, which is Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas, and amongst them Pandyas were the one who actually can be said to have these patrons of these Sangams. Okay, the first Sangam was held at Then Madurai, and it was attended by the gods and the legendary sages. But since there is no literary work available of that time, we don't have much information as to what happened in that Sangam. Then the second Sangam was held at Kapadapuram, but all the literary works are not available, and only one book has survived, which is Tolkapiyam. And the third Sangam, which was held at again Madurai, was founded by this is Mudha Thiruman, and it was attended by large number of poets, and it produced voluminous literature of works. And this particular third Sangam is the one from which major of the works are available to us, through which we have deciphered what would have been the Sangam age. Okay, and it is only through this third Sangam we know, the books have survived, which we actually read and identified what was Sangam age all about. These Tamil literary works remain useful sources of history to reconstruct the Sangam age. Now we will start with something called as Sangam literature, because Sangam is what? It's an assembly, it's an academy of Tamil poets. They're all coming together, they're trying to write books, they're trying to create discussions and also pen them down. First Sangam, we did not have information. Second and third, we have. In second, only one book survived, Tolkapiyam. In third, basically, a lot of books survived. So then, Sangam literature becomes a prominent part. The corpus of Sangam literature includes Tolkapiyam, which is from the second council or second academy or second Sangam. And then there are other works like Ethutugai, Patupattu, Pathina Kilanakku, and 2 other epics which are very, very famous and very, very important, which is Silapadikaram and Madi Megalai. Okay, so these are all the books that were compiled during the Sangam age. Tolkapiyam, remember, its founder, or you can say the author, was Tolkapiyar, and he was one of the earliest people who wrote in Tamil literature. Okay, and it is a work. See, that book is also about Tamil grammar, and this question has been asked in state services examination. Okay, so Tolkapiyam is about the Tamil grammar written by Tolkapiyar, which is very easy to remember, but it also provided, see, a book is not just about grammar, it also provided you certain political and socio-economic conditions of Sangam period. Like it told you what is the society about, what is the politics about, how is the administration run, etc. Then the other books like Ethutugai actually means 8 anthologies. It consists of 8 different works. Okay, so these are the 8 different works, and just because I do not want to wrongly pronounce them, hence I'm leaving it to you. Generally questions have not been asked, but you need to remember Ethutugai. See, 8 to Gai. This is how you can remember Ethugai. So 8 means 8. So Ethutugai means 8 works. Okay. The Pattu Pattu means basically 10 idols, which consist of 10 works. Okay. And these are the names of the 10 works that you have been given with. Then both Etutugai and Patupattu, they were divided into two main groups. So see what is happening in Third Academy. Basically, there are a lot of people coming. There's a lot of writing happening, but majorly this writing has been divided into two parts. One is called as the Ahem and one is called as the Puram. So Ahem related work is basically something that is writing about love and love stories, etc. And Puram is basically writing about the valor, about the fights, etc. Okay, so Pathina Kilanakku, it contains 18 works mostly dealing with ethics and morals. So this you need to remember because this has been specifically asked in the one of the state services examination. The most important among them is Thirukural, which recently was also in news, especially when our Prime Minister Mr. Modi also mentioned him, okay, in one of his speeches. So Thirukural is one of the most important work which was authored by Thiruvalluvar. Okay, Silappatikaram and Manimegalai are the two epics. Just like Ramayana and Mahabharata are two epics of North India, Silappatikaram and Manimegalai are the epics of South India. So Silappatikaram is written by Ilango and the Manimegalai is written by Sattanar. Okay, so how do you remember it? See, S cannot come with S. So therefore, Silappatikaram by Ilango and Manimegalai by Sattanar. Okay, and they also provide you an important information about what was the polity, what was the society of the Sangam age. Then comes the other sources. In addition to Sangam literature, the Greek authors like Megasthenes, Strabo, Pliny, Ptolemy, they also mentioned about the commercial contacts which were existing between their particular countries and southern India. The Ashokan inscriptions, as I told you, they were also extending till south. So they also mentioned about Chera Cholas and Pandya rulers on the south of the modern empire. Okay, the Hathi Kumpha caves. Remember the Kharavela king of Kalinga and the Odisha side. So those Hathi Kumpha caves, which also mentioned about the modern empire, they also mentioned about the Tamil kingdoms of Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas. Okay, excavations which were done later in Arikamedu, which is basically the city of Pondicherry. Then Pumpuhar, Kodugunnal are other places where you can find extensive, materials and artifacts which tell you that there used to exist some Sangam, Sangam age, and there used to be trade also done with the other countries. Okay. Now we come to the period of Sangam literature. So the chronology of Sangam literature is still obviously a disputed topic, and the sheet anchor of Sangam chronology lies in the fact that Gajbaju II of Sri Lanka and the Cheran Sengotovan, okay, he's one of the Chera dynasty rulers, like very famous rulers. So they were contemporaries. See, what is happening is, suppose you do not know who ruled when, okay, in this particular land, but you know that this particular person who's ruling right now is a contemporary of this person because in another state, in the another state's books, okay, this person's name has been mentioned. So now these two are contemporaries, and that is how you can reconstruct history. Okay, so if you're not sure, which existed when, you try to find contemporaries. Okay, you try to see what were their trade contacts, who were they trading with, who were their contemporaries, and through that you actually identify, okay, this dynasty might have been at this particular time. Okay, and this is again confirmed by Silappatikaram as well as Deepvamsa and Mahavamsa. Exactly, those Ceylonese chronicles which are non-canonical Buddhist text. Okay. Also, the Roman coins which were issued by Roman emperors in the 1st century AD were found in plenty in various places of Tamil Nadu. So that also tells you that there was an extensive trade between South India and the Roman Empire. Therefore, the most probable date of Sangam literature has been fixed around 3rd century AD, BC to 3rd century AD, somewhere like, probably something like this. Okay, but this is not an exact date. This is like just an estimation. Sangam age can be different also. Okay, but more around like somewhere here and there only. Now we come to the political history of Sangam age. So the Tamil country, I already told you, it was ruled by 3 dynasties, okay, which is also called as the Tamil Elam. What is it called? Tamil Elam. And the 3 dynasties are Cholas, Cholas and Pandyas. Okay, and now we will study each of these dynasties in little bit detail. So Cheras, as you know, they ruled over the parts of modern Kerala. So now this is what you need to remember. There is Cheras, there is Pandyas, and then there is Cheras and then there is Cholas and Pandyas. Okay, so the Cheras used to rule over the modern parts of Kerala. So this side, on the western side, basically you have Cheras. Okay, their capital, you need to remember, is at Vanji, and their important seaport, okay, and seaports used for trade reasons. So they were at Tondi and Musiri. This Musiri is basically the same as Muziris, which was in news because there were some excavations done and there was a plan to reconstruct Muziris, which was the ancient town back then in Chera Empire. Okay, so Muziris is basically Musiri only, and this is present in today's Kerala, and this was a very important center or a seaport for Cheras. They also had the palmyra flowers as their garland. And the Pugalur inscription of the 1st century AD, it refers to the generations of, basically it tells you that there were 3 generations of Chera rulers. Okay, Paduru Pattu also provides information on Chera kings. So, and then there are other books also mentioned here which tells you about the Chera rulers, and it also tells you the names of those rulers. For example, Udyan, for example, Nedum Cherlattan, okay, for example, Cheran Sengutuvan. But the one ruler that you need to remember for sure for examination is this Cheran Sengutuvan. Okay, Sengutuvan. So this Cheran Sengutuvan, he belonged to 2nd century AD, and his younger brother, okay, the one who wrote Silapaddikaram was Ilango. Okay, and then among his military achievements, his expedition to Himalayas was one of the most remarkable, you can say, conquest of his time. He defeated many North Indian monarchies. Okay, and he also introduced, like as a symbol of victory, he introduced the worship of this Patani cult. Okay, wherein you worship Kannagi as an idol wife in Tamil Nadu. And the stone for making the idol of Kanaki was brought to him from Himalayas. Okay, after he was victorious over that Himalayan expedition. And the consecration ceremony was attended by many princes, including the king of Sri Lanka, whom we call as Cheran Sengutuvan's contemporary. Okay. Then we come to the next empire of Cholas. The Chola kingdom of Sangam period, it extended from the modern Tiruchi district of southern Andhra Pradesh, and the capital was at Urayur. Okay, and then it was shifted to Puhar. And this Puhar and Urayur have been asked in exam before. So Puhar and Urayur are important cities of what kingdom? Chola kingdom. Okay, Karikala was a famous king of Sangam Cholas. Okay, and you know that actually why is it written Sangam Cholas is because Cholas are of 2 ages. One is the Sangam age and one is the Imperial Cholas. Sangam age is the one which is coming around 100 to 200 AD, while Imperial Cholas will be coming around 1100 AD. Okay, so do not get confused. Cholas here that we are talking about are Imperial, not Imperial Cholas, but Sangam Cholas. Okay, then Patinapalli portrays his early life and the military conquest of Sangam Cholas, and there is a battle of Veni mentioned here, wherein he defeated the mighty confederacy, okay, which consisted of Cheras, Pandyas, and even other 11 other kings, wherein Cholas were able to defeat, okay, Cheras, Pandyas plus 11 other kings together in a battle. And this event is mentioned in many of the Sangam poems also. Vahai Paradanai was another important battle which was fought by the Chola king. Okay, and his achievements were also written like elaborately in this Tamil books. Now trade and commerce, I already told you, they actually flourished during this region, and somewhere you will also find that there has been cities built on the rivers, and many irrigation tanks have been built during the Chola period. Now we come to the 3rd dynasty, which is the Pandyas. So the Pandyas ruled over the present day southern Tamil Nadu. Okay, so there is this region is, as I already told you, it is Cholas, and this southern region like extreme tip. So this is Cheras, this is Cholas, and this is Pandyas. Okay, this is Cheras, this is Cholas, and this is Pandyas. So the Pandyas ruled in the southern of Tamil Nadu, and their capital was at Madurai. The earliest king of Pandyan dynasty was Nedyan. Okay, and then there are others also. There were 2 Neduchelians, and the first one was known as Arai Padhyay Kadanta Neduchelian, the one who won victories over the Aryan kings, and he was also responsible for excavation of Kovalam. Okay, this is very, very important, for which Kannagi burnt Madurai. And the other was Talai Ganattu. So this Kannagi burnt Madurai, before we move forward, is the story of basically Silapadikaram. Okay, the novel that we are telling, Ilango one. So that story is all about an anklet, and how basically it leads to the death of one of the man who was a husband of Kannagi. So this is a story which is mentioned in Silapadikaram. The other was Talaya Langanathu Cheruvan, and he won the battle basically at this Telaya Langanam, and that is why his name basically had this word. So I'm sorry if I would have pronounced it wrong, but I have done I actually listened to it before I spoke, but still, I mean, it's about the pronunciation in a particular language. So I'm really sorry if I hurt your feeling in any way. He was praised by Nakirar and Mangadi Marunthar, but this is not important. What is important is basically this. Okay, this Madurai Kanji, it was written by Mangudi Marunthar, and it describes the socio-economic condition of the Pandya country. So this book you need to remember. Okay, and then there was a battle of Talyaganattu that you need to remember, and now we will move forward. The last famous Pandyan king that you need to remember was Ugera Peruvaladdi, and the Pandyan ruler during the Sangam age began to decline due to invasion of Kalabras. This is not important. What is important is basically where are these Chola dynasties present? What is the like 2 or 3 main rulers? Then if there are any books or special kind of battles that they have fought. Okay, and finally last thing would be to have famous cities that you can think of and famous seaports. Now we will talk about the minor chieftains. So minor chieftains played a very significant role in the Sangam period. Among them, for example, Pari, Kari, Uri, Nalli, Pegam, Ai, Adyaman, they were very popular for their philanthropy and patronage to Tamil poets. Okay, and although they were subordinate to Chera, Chola, Pandya rulers, but they were still very powerful, at least in their own respective regions. Then we have Sangam polity. So the hereditary monarchy was the form of government during the Sangam period. Okay, and here also you will find there is monarchy, but there is also hereditary. That means your father, then your son, then you, then father you, then your son, then the grandson, etc. Okay, the king had also taken the advice of ministers, court poet, but in the end, king was the one who was the main person who was giving the directions. Chera king assumed the titles like Vannavarambam, Vannavan, Kuttuvan, Irumporai, Villavar. The Chola kings assumed the titles like Seni, Vallavan, Kilni, and the Pandyan kings like Thennavar and Minnavar. Okay, each of the Sangam dynasties had a royal emblem. For example, Karp was of Pandyas, Tiger was of Cholas. So this is like Chola have tiger. Okay, Karp is of Pandyas. Karp is basically like a fish, and then there is bow for Cheras. So how do you need to remember? Basically, a bow is thrown to kill both tiger and a fish. Okay, the imperial court or Avai was attended by a number of chiefs and officials, and the king was assisted by a large body of officials. Okay, which were divided into 5 main councils. A was the council of ministers, which were called as the Maichar. Then there was priest, which was called as the Anantnar. Then there were military commanders called as Sarpanch. Senapati. Then there are envoys which are called as Sutars, and finally there are spies, okay, called as Orers. And you also know in Mauryan dynasty also spies played an important role. So here you will realize that spies are actually working a lot. Then military administration was also efficiently organized during the Sangam age, and each ruler, okay, had a regular army and a perspective tutelary tree also. Now you will find that land revenue, just like the other dynasties, land revenue was a chief source of state's income, while custom duty was also imposed if you're doing certain kind of foreign trade. Okay, the booty which was captured in the wars was also an income which was put in the royal treasury. Now we will talk about the Sangam society. So the Tolka PM, okay, which was the book that survived the second academy or second Sangam, refers to a 5-fold division of lands, which was Kuranji. So hilly tracts are called as Kuranji. Then there are pastoral communities. Basically, this is where the grass would be. So these are called as the Mullai. Okay. Then you have agriculture fields where you will have suppose crops like this. Okay. So these are called as the Marudan. Okay. Then you have coastal areas where there is sea. So there this area will be called as Nedal. Okay, and then last area where is the basically desert where you only have sand dunes, etc. This is called as the Palai. So there are 5 basically division of lands, and what are those 5 divisions? Mountains are called Kurinjis, pastoral is called as the Mullais, then agriculture is called as the Marudam, Nadyal is the name of the coastal region, Palai is the name of the desert region. Okay, people living in these 5 divisions had their respective occupations. For example, someone who is living in the desert, okay, basically in Palai area, his chief deity will be Koravai, okay, and their chief occupation will be robbery. Why? Because there is nothing to do in a desert. They can't earn a living in desert. That is why their occupation only became robbery. Now, similarly, if you are basically your division of land is Kurinji, that means you are living in mountains. So your chief deity will become Murugan. Okay, and your chief activity will be what? So in mountains will be forest, and in forest what you can do? Honey cultivation or hunting, and that is what basically you will do if you are a Kurinji. Then if you have a Kurinji land, then suppose if your land is pastoral or basically Mullai, then your chief deity will be Vishnu or Mayon, and the chief occupation will be, because there is a lot of grazing grass available, so you will start keeping cattle. So your main occupation will also be cattle rearing along with some dairy products. Then suppose if you are working in agriculture field or agriculture land, then your agriculture land will be called as the Marudam, and there the chief deity will be Indra, because we all know that agriculture depends on rain. Okay, and the chief occupation is agriculture. Now the last that is remaining is the Nedyal, which is the coastal area, and you will know that here the chief deity will be Varunan, and the chief occupation you will find is of fishing as well as the salt manufacturing. Okay, because it is located on the sea coast. Now Tolka PM, it also refers to the 4 castes, and please remember this has been asked in the UPSC before. What is the Anantanath? This was the priest. Arasar was, so here are these words, remember, like Amaichar, Anantanath, Senapati, Thutar and Orars. So they have been used again, but there are some new words also. Okay, so 4 castes are Arasar, Anantanath, Vanigar and Velalar. Okay, and the ruling class, okay, was called as the Arasar. Anantanath was a significant role because these were the priests. Then there were Vanigars who basically it is like that only. Okay, like Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishyas and Shudras. And instead of Brahmins, you're calling them as Anantanath. Instead of Kshatriyas, you're calling them as Arasar, okay, which is the ruling class. Then you have Vaishyas, which you also call as Vanigars, okay, which are carrying out trade and commerce. And finally, you will realize that you have Shudras in the end here, but here agriculturalists were called as the Velalas. The other tribal groups like Pannar, Ainar, Kadambar, Pulayars, they were also basically part of Sangam society. And ancient primitive tribes like Todas, which you also find today in Nilgiris, Vedas, Nagas, etc., also lived in this period. And Nagas and Todas, etc., and Irulas. Okay, these Irulas is a popular tribe of Kerala that is used for snake catching. And you know that they were also called in Amazon jungles and even by USA to catch snakes. Okay, so Irulas are very famous tribes. Similarly are the Nagas, and the others are Todas. And Todas, you already know, they have a lot of biodiversity knowledge, and they generally basically use these herbs, etc., which are present in the forest. And that is why there was a plan that you will try to actually convince these indigenous communities to tell you the importance of these herbs. Okay, then you have a religion. So the primary deity of the Sangam age was Sion or Murugan, okay, which was also the god for Kurinji, and who is hailed as the Tamil god. The worship of Murugan was having an ancient origin, and festivals relating to god Murugan was mentioned in the Sangam literature. Okay, and you will find that he was honored with 6 abodes, okay, which were known as the Arupadi Vidu. And the other gods worshipped during the Sangam period were Mayon like Vishnu, Vedan, Andaran, Varunan and Koravai. The hero stone worship, okay, which you even find today also, like patthar laga ke you put some tika, etc., that is called as the hero stone worship, or a Nadupal worship, was significant in Sangam period. The hero stone was erected in the memory of the bravery of the warrior, okay, and therefore you will find that there have been many hero stones and there have been certain inscriptions also on them. Then you have finally the position of women. So there is a plenty of information in the Sangam literature to trace and tell you the position of women. Okay, there were women poets like Avayar, Nachilayar and Kakita Padinyar who flourished in this period, and they contributed to Tamil literature. Okay, the courage of the women was appreciated by these poems, and the corpu or the chaste life was considered as the highest virtue of women. Love marriage was a common practice. Women were allowed to choose their life partners, which is a great deal. Even today, you will find that there is so much resistance against love marriage. However, the life of widows was miserable. Practice of sati was prevalent, and especially in the higher strata of society. And if you know that gender sex ratio is either very bad in these upper class societies or in the lower class societies. Okay, and the class of dancers was patronized by the kings and nobles. Okay, now we will have fine arts. So you will realize that pottery, music, dancing, they were very, very popular among the people of Sangam age. Liberal donations were given to the poets by the kings and chiefs and nobles. Okay, the royal courts were crowded with singing, and there was like a lot of activity and lot of hustle bustle going on inside the court. There were like folk dances and folk music and folk songs also. Okay, and there were variety of drums and other instruments that were available in the Sangam literature. And you will realize that Kuthu became the most important form of entertainment for people. Okay, then you have the economy of Sangam age. So agriculture, we already know that land revenue was the basic source, and land revenue is coming from agriculture. Therefore, agriculture has also become the chief occupation. Rice was a very common crop. Rice, sugarcane, cotton, pepper, ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, and there were a lot of fruits also which were grown along with the crops. Jackfruit and pepper, they were very, very famous in the Chera dynasty. Paddy was a chief crop in the Cholas and the Pandyas. Okay. Handicrafts of Sangam period, they were very, very popular. They included weaving, metalworks, carpentry, shipbuilding, making of ornaments from different stones and ivory and beads, and there was a great demand of these products, especially in the outside world. And spinning and weaving of cotton and silk, they also attained like a very high quality, which we have not been able to achieve till now. The poems mentioned the cotton clothes, as thin, like they were like the count that we talk about, right? So that number that we talk about, that cotton clothes were so thin that they looked like a cloud of steam or a slough of a snake. Okay, so that means the cotton quality has improved so much. Both internal and foreign trade, they were very well organized, and Sangam literature, Greek and Roman literature, they actively mention about these trade links. Okay, and there have been archaeological evidences also that we have found once we have carried out excavations in certain places. External trade, we already know, was carried between South India and Greek and Roman kingdoms, and the Roman trade was much more, you can say, important and more elaborate than the Greek trade. The port city of Puhar. Okay, your homework is to tell me where is Puhar located. We just discussed it. Okay, which dynasty? Chera, Cholas, or Pandyas? The port city of Puhar, it became an emporium of foreign trade, as there were big ships which entered this port and then precious goods. Other ports of commercial activity included like Muziris, which you already know is present in Kerala. Arika Medu, we know, is basically the today's Pondicherry. The author of Periples provides the most valuable information on foreign trade, and you will also find that there were extent of trade relations also in the presence of Roman traders in the Tamil country also. And the main exports of the Sangam age, this you need to remember. This was asked in UPSC prelims. That main exports of Sangam age were cotton, because this is what we produce, spices like pepper, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, and turmeric. Then there are ivory products, because we are present in the Western Ghat region, the Nilgiris region, and that region, even the Eastern Ghat region, has a lot of forests, and those forests will have a lot of elephants, and elephants will have ivory. Okay, then obviously since you are located near sea, so you will have pearls and then another semi precious stones. Gold, horses, and sweet wine, they were the major imports that we were importing from outside. What was it? Gold, which we even import today from South Korea, Switzerland, etc. Then you have horses, and in geography there's a term called as doldrums. Okay, and this doldrums has to you do something with these horses. Okay, that you need to tell me in the comment box below. And then sweet wine. So these were the chief imports that we were making from the outside world. And finally, we come to the end of Sangam age. So we already know that there is no defined criteria as to this is the starting and ending of Sangam age, but we have definitely a rough idea. Like around 300 AD, we say that Sangam age has started its decline. The Kalbhras or the other the local tribes have started occupying their territories. And what is happening is that after this, you will find that there is a lot of gap, and you're not able to fill this gap. Okay. Then after Sangam age, you will find in southern India you have Pallavas, and after Pallavas you might have Chalukyas and then Rashtrakutas, etc. Okay, and after that, in somewhere that time only, you will also have imperial Cholas coming up. So there is a lot happening even in the southern Indian history. It's just that we don't study it. And now we have taken an initiative to cover all the Tamil Nadu like class 11th and class 12th books, because the syllabus and the UPSC pattern has been changing, and prelims questions have been increasingly asked from these two books. Okay, and also we are covering the entire history starting from ancient and going till modern in a wall chart. Okay, and this wall chart you can easily find it in the Pramesh plus Pramesh e-library, or you can also find it on Amazon and Flipkart. So we will meet in the next lecture again. Thank you.